You know, those places that just feel off, where the air itself seems, I don't know, thick with unspoken stories.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
That's Briarwake. I mean, picture cracked asphalt spiderwebbing across roads that haven't seen real repair in ages.
Right, and the streetlights, they always seem to be flickering, don't they?
Exactly, like nervous eyes.
Yeah.
And the whole town's just draped in this perpetual fog. Houses kind of lean in on each other, almost whispering, you know.
Mm-hmm. All under the shadow of the Ashewood. That forest. It doesn't feel like just trees.
No, it feels alive, like it's pressing in.
Yeah.
You see these weird little charms, talismans hanging over doorways.
That kind of folk magic, trying to keep something out.
Or maybe in.
Could be. People pass through it, but they almost never stay. And the kids, sometimes they come back from playing near the woods, and they're just different, quieter.
As if something's marked them.
Yeah. There's this real unsettling feeling hanging over Briarwake, this idea that, well, nothing dead truly stays dead there. And that unease isn't just random. It's deeply rooted in the town's history, especially the oldest families, the Holloways, the Dunmores, and the Cartwrights.
Right, these three families.
Their stories are completely tangled up with Briarwake's founding. Their ties back to the old world, this horrific event in 1743, the Red Moon Massacre.
Of the Ayacaиa tribe, yeah.
And the curses that seem to follow their descendants even today.
The sources we looked at call them foundations of sin built on that massacre. That's intense.
It really is. And the material we have paints this picture not just of Briarwake, but connects it to the Ayacaиa, even the wider Appalachian Exclusion Zone. It hints this story is bigger than just one town.
Okay, so let's get into these families. The Holloways, Dunmores, Cartwrights. What were their origins, their connections beyond Briarwake?
Let's start with the Holloways. Their motto now, kind of whispers it, is, "We pay in silence." Really hints at their current state.
Paying for past sins, maybe?
Seems likely. They used to be the power in Briarwake iron mines, tons of land. Holloway Manor was this big symbol of their wealth and, well, maybe their damnation too.
Mm-hmm.
But their roots go way back. 17th century England, Somerset. They were a big merchant family connected to powerful landowners.
Okay.
And their name, Holloway, supposedly comes from a sacred Celtic grove, the Holloway, that they were tasked with guarding. So even their name has this ancient sort of mystical connection.
Guarding a grove. But it was more than that, wasn't it? The sources mentioned occult stuff.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't just guard duty. We're talking secret involvement in Celtic rituals, Druidic arts, pagan societies, even rumors of pacts made for wealth.
Pacts, like deals with spirits.
Seems like it. There's mention of a married Holloway supposedly conjuring spirits and a Roderick Holloway who apparently had contact with the Fey world, you know, the old English nature spirits side fad.
Okay, so they weren't just merchants. They were deep into some old, powerful magic.
Exactly. And dabbling in that kind of thing, it started drawing the wrong kind of attention back in England. Late 1600s, early 1700s.
Candles, disappearances.
All of the above. Even whispers of sacrifices. Things got too hot for them, it seems. Scrutiny was increasing.
So they bolted. Headed for the new world.
Pretty much. Early 1700s. It wasn't just about opportunity. It was about escaping their past, finding somewhere they could maybe continue their practices without judgment.
And they land right on the edge of the Ashewood. Coincidence?
Probably not. It seems like they recognized something in the Ashewood, a similar kind of ancient power they were familiar with from the old country.
And they brought the old ways with them. Sacrifices, rituals.
Yep. Honoring land spirits, full moon rituals for prosperity, blood sacrifices. It's all detailed. Elias Holloway, when he arrived, supposedly made this pact with the land.
Believing the Ashewood held magic he could tap into.
Right. But maybe he didn't realize he wasn't just tapping power. He was potentially angering something already there, something ancient.
A dangerous game. Okay, so that's the Holloways. What about the Dunmores? Their motto is even creepier. Roots rot deeper than branches break.
The Dunmores, they're described as being almost older than Briarwake itself. Like they just emerged from the woods.
Really?
Yeah. Even the original Ayacaиa tribe called them the Black-Rooted Ones. Their origins are traced back to the Black Forest in Germany.
The Black Forest. That place has its own dark folklore, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Associated with forest cults, death worshippers, a very different flavor of old world connection than the Holloway's Celtic roots.
Death worshippers. Who did they worship?
Something called the Wired Herd. like a primal pantheon of spirit animals, and a central figure, the horned shaman. He had various names: Der Grauvater, Velkhorn, the rooted king.
Okay, that's intense. What were their practices like?
Pretty dark. Things like witch bonding marriages to keep abilities in the bloodline, warding rites using bone fetishes, even stillbirth sacrifices, which is just horrific. And they used something called blood tongues, supposedly an ancient dialect for communing with old spirits. Their magic was very primal, tied to life, death, the forest.
So like the Holloways, deep into the occult, but darker, more elemental. And they fled Europe too.
Yeah, same period. The witch purges were hitting hard. They ended up in the colonial wilds. And just like the Holloways, they recognized the Ashewood, saw it as a place teeming with ancient spirits.
And made their own pact. A dark pact.
That's how the sources describe it. Their hidden legacy includes things like the Oshreath grimoire, written in that blood tongue, their family sigil, a stag skull tangled in thorns and roots, and these ritual rooting dream pilgrimages. It suggests a really deep, almost physical connection to the Ashewood spirit world.
And there's that weird suggestion they might not be fully human.
Yeah, that's unsettling. Recurring traits popping up, cloven feet in some, a second shadow. Some even claim to hear the rooted cane whispering to them.
Okay, that's deeply disturbing. A family tied to something ancient, possibly inhuman, in the woods. Let's shift to the Cartwrights. They're saying, salvation is a blade sharpened on the guilty. Sounds very Puritan.
And that's exactly their origin. Puritan England, late 1500s. From a place called Ashbrook, near the Weald, another area known for dark forests and witch hunts, interestingly.
Huh. It all comes back to forests, doesn't it?
It seems to. Their patriarch, A.E.Z. Cartwright, was a stern preacher back in England, involved in witch trials, maybe even using religion for his own ends. So that potential for darkness was there early on.
So intense religious belief may be bordering on extremism even before they got here.
Definitely. They carried those Puritan beliefs, sin, punishment, retribution, right across the Atlantic. They adopted Saint Isolde as their patron.
Saints, purity, destroying false idols, that sort of thing.
Right. Supposedly linked to a vision some later Cartwright had, but it's Reverend Josiah Cartwright where it gets really dark.
He seems key.
He was deeply connected to older, harsher interpretations of faith. Sacrifice. Stuff that ran in his English family line. There are even rumors he studied occult texts himself.
A Puritan preacher studying the occult.
Specifically texts about spiritual warfare, blood magic. It seems his background really colored how he interpreted his faith, especially his vision of the red moon.
He thought it was a sign from Saint Isolde.
He did, but the sources suggest his occult studies, his family's history with blood rites from Ashbrook, twisted that vision. He turned Saint Isolde into this vengeful figure demanding the elimination of the unworthy.
So he weaponized his faith.
Essentially, yes. You've got these three families, each dragging their own old world baggage. Holloway occultism and nature pacts, Dunmore primal forest magic and possibly inhuman ties, and Cartwright religious extremism fueled by potential occult knowledge.
And it all comes crashing together in 1743. The Red Moon Massacre. Yeah. What were their specific roles?
It's the moment everything crystallizes, the act that seals Briarwake's fate, you could say. Elias Holloway's role was pure treachery.
The Binding Feast.
Exactly. He lured the Tisiconi leaders in, promising peace talks, but the real plan was mass murder to grab their land. All while a red moon was rising. The symbolism is hard to miss.
Just brutal. And the Dunmores, they used their connection to the woods against the tribe.
In a devastatingly effective way, Lucinda Dunmore, the midwife, the herb witch, she wove these binding wards.
What were they made of?
Thorn vines, ground bone, livestock blood, grim stuff. They basically acted like spiritual static. Cutting the Tisiconi off from the Ashewood spirits, the protectors, left them completely vulnerable.
And she was rewarded for this.
Land near the Ashewood, and crucially, protection for her family's own practices. A secret deal between the founding family.
Wow. A betrayal upon betrayal.
Yeah.
And the Cartwrights, Josiah.
He was the ideological engine. He didn't fight, but he blessed the weapons. He declared the Tisiconi and their ways false idols, framing the massacre as divine retribution.
Making it a holy war.
A sacred duty, a cleansing, just a horrific combination. Holloway deceit, Dunmore spiritual sabotage, and Cartwright righteous violence.
It wasn't just murder. It was breaking a bond with the land itself, especially for the Holloways who tried to make their own pact. No wonder it led to curses. How do those play out today?
The curses are chillingly specific to each family's sin. For the Holloways, the betrayers, it's the weeping plague.
Psychic whispers?
Yeah. Descendants hear the voices of the murdered tribe. It starts faint, then grows, leading to waking nightmares, visions of the massacre, eventually madness, or they just vanish into the Ashewood.
The woods their ancestors wanted.
Exactly. The Holloway women, the matriarchs, seem especially prone. Their weeping is often the first sign they're losing touch. And Holloway Manor itself, they talk about the crying eyes.
Glowing windows.
Faces of the victims apparently screaming silently. They've even tried to burn the manor down, but it never takes. They're trapped.
So they just suffer in silence now.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Secluded in the decaying manor, Margaret, the current matriarch, is frail, haunted by the whispers. William, the last son, seems to be going the same way, a legacy of torment.
God, that's bleak. And the Dunmores. Their curse is tied to the spirits they help trap.
Right. The spirits of the Tisacona dead are supposedly bound to the Dunmore bloodline, unable to move on. Their focus is this half-sunken, warded family mausoleum. People say you can hear mourning sounds from it.
So the Dunmores themselves are haunted, physically.
Every Dunmore born since Lucinda's betrayal carries marks. Patches of withered skin, speaking the Ashewood language in their sleep, sometimes weeping this black, sappy substance.
Weeping sap.
Yeah. The bloodline itself acts like a magnet, holding the spirits tighter. Modern Dunmores often look different. Pale, dark, amber eyes, really long fingers, maybe an extra joint. They're secretive, have these talents dream weaving, root binding, but using them can backfire, make the curse worse.
And there are darker secrets, too. A hidden vault. Lucinda's heart.
Whispers, yeah. A second vault under the mausoleum for the worst afflicted. And the belief that Lucinda's actual heart is buried, unrotted, somewhere in the Ashewood, acting as the anchor for the curse. There's even talk of a lost branch of the family trying to escape it all.
Who's left now?
Miriam Dunmore heads the family, living isolated in their mansion, apparently leaning into the occult stuff. Her son, Aidan, is missing, supposedly drawn into the forest, forever tied to that place.
Bound to the spirits they betrayed. Okay, Cartwrights. Their curse stems from that twisted faith. The cracked church bell.
That's the symbol, yeah. St. Isolde's bell, cracked during the massacre aftermath, supposedly screams at night, a sign the spirits aren't contained.
And the sacrament rot.
A horrible wasting disease only affects Cartwrights. Skin deteriorates, emaciation, plus constant nightmares, visions of Ashewood spirits. They call them the false shepherds.
No, they hide away, too.
Many do. Change their names. Their old house is supposedly active too, crosses moving, scriptures whispering, and there's this cycle. Ambitious descendants keep trying to finish Josiah's work, maybe trying to appease whatever he unleashed, possibly even getting possessed by it.
A cycle of corruption. Who's left?
Evangeline Cartwright, the oldest, she's got the rot bad, acts as the grim family historian. And Robert Cartwright, the last preacher, gives these unhinged sermons obsessed with redemption.
So each family haunted in a way that perfectly mirrors their crime. Holloways by the victims' voices, Dunmores by the trapped spirits, Cartwrights by a physical and spiritual decay. The past is literally eating them alive.
Absolutely. And it's not just the curses. These old traditions still cling to Briarwake, showing how deep those pre-massacre roots go.
Right, like the town remembers older gods, even before the massacre.
Exactly. Despite the surface Christianity, these older, darker forest cult remnants persist. Take the Greenwake. Late spring, first fogs.
Horned masks, processions, sacrifices.
That's the old story. A parade around the edge of the woods, rumors of giving something to the woods, a goat, maybe worse for good crops. Now it's just a spring festival.
But people still disappear around that time.
Dismissed as bad luck, but it happens. Then there's the Ember Fast, midsummer.
Burning effigies.
Originally, yeah. Protection from Ashewood spirits trying to lure souls into the trees. Now it's a bonfire night. But everyone feels compelled to burn something personal. That core idea of offering something, warding something off, it's still there.
Instinctively, almost.
And herd worship comes from the Tisacona belief in the great herd, the collective spirit of the forest joined by the unjustly dead.
And there are still secret societies in Briarwake related to that.
Claiming lineage to the first herders. Secret rituals, animal hides, blood offerings to old trees, and people report signs. Animals wailing, trees shaking with no wind, fog rolling uphill, ash hoof prints appearing out of nowhere.
Creepy. It points to something powerful still active in the woods.
this deep-seated malice that seems to have really taken root there. Feels old, but also very present.
Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting looking at the different accounts is that this isn't some sudden thing. It's more like a slow buildup of corruption, a legacy almost.
Right. So actions and consequences piling up over time.
Exactly. So our goal today is to trace this darkness in the Ashewood. Like right back to the start, back to the first things that went wrong, the acts that kicked off this whole horrible chain reaction.
Trying to understand how a local horror story got so deep and messed up.
Yeah, it's about getting to the roots.
So we've pulled together different bits, historical accounts, some local lore, even some unsettling observations about the zone now. It feels a bit like digging through a nightmare's archaeology.
That's a good way to put it, archaeology of a nightmare.
And what we really want to grasp is how a few choices, maybe one group's actions, could end up poisoning a whole region, connecting a tribe's fate, a shaman's curse, and even the decay of the woods themselves.
That connection is key, isn't it? It's not just random bad luck hitting the place.
No, seems more deliberate, or at least connected.
What the sources suggest is a cascade. One dark action makes the next one possible, or maybe even inevitable. It feeds itself.
Okay, so let's start where the sources seem to point first. This group called the Black Wendigo tribe. Now, they weren't always the bad guys, were they? Originally, they had a different relationship with the land.
That's right. The older stories, they talk about a real respect for the Ashewood. They understood balance. They felt connected to the spirits of the forest, lived with it, not against it.
But something pulled them off that path, right? They got interested in something hidden. Something they maybe shouldn't have. Like they started listening to the wrong voices.
Precisely. The accounts mention this growing obsession with, secret truths buried deep beneath the Ashewood. And these hints, one source calls them festering whispers. They weren't coming from friendly spirits.
So like dark entities pretending to be something else?
Seems like it. Ancient things may be wearing masks. And the tribe may be wanting power or knowledge.
Yeah.
They fell for it. That turning away, that was the first step down.
And you have to wonder, did they even realize they were being tricked? Or did they think they were finding some profound wisdom?
That's the scary part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe they thought they were achieving enlightenment, but they were actually just being corrupted.
And this led them to do some pretty wild stuff, like unsealing gates. That sounds bad.
That's the language used, yeah.
Yeah.
In their desperation to connect with these things.
Yeah.
To get the power they were whispering about, they basically ripped open a door.
A door to what?
Ancient darkness. Something fundamentally wrong. Hostile to life. The whispers promised them everything, didn't they? Power, maybe immortality, control. And they went for it. Willingly let the corruption in.
It shows how that hunger for power can just twist everything, doesn't it? Not just people, but a whole group, a whole way of life.
Absolutely. And the fallout for everyone else nearby, it was quick.
Yeah.
And brutal.
Right. Their whole behavior changed towards other tribes.
Yeah.
It got ugly fast.
Yeah, really violent. They started wars, not just for land or food, but seemingly out of this new savagery. They took captives, and apparently the children born from those unions were marked.
How?
Unnatural, glowing eyes, weirdly pale skin, twisted bodies. Like the corruption was literally in their bloodline now.
Grim. Then the sacrifices at the Great Heartroot Tree. The stuff involving kids, that's hard to even think about.
Yeah, that's where things get really dark. That connection to the land, it got twisted into something perverse. Ritual sacrifices of enemy children and the elderly, offered to this tree in what used to be their sacred grove.
So they were poisoning their own sacred site?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
The sources suggest that was the moment the grove itself got tainted, long before Aяcaиa's later curse.
Yeah.
It's chilling. How acts like that can just poison a place's soul.
So even before the big curse we'll get to, this place was already being defiled. Blood and bone offered into the tree's heart. It's like their inner darkness was physically leaking out into the world.
Exactly. You nailed it. The accounts talk about a rot starting inside the tree, remains piling up in its hollow center. Then this thick, viscous, black ichor started seeping out, poisoning the ground around it.
Oh, nasty.
Yeah. The sacred grove was literally becoming diseased, twisted.
And the name changed too, right? From the sacred grove to the Black Grove and the tree.
Became the root wallow tree, yeah. The names themselves reflect the change. The land was reacting, recoiling from what they were doing.
It went from being a symbol of life to this cursed thing.
Exactly. The root wallow tree, no longer channeling life, but becoming a conduit for something awful lurking beneath the earth. The heart of the Black Grove, surrounded by this mire of black, diseased sap, a physical symptom of the blight.
And the tribe members, they started changing physically too, mirroring the tree and the land. The descriptions are, well, they're intense.
Seems like eating the flesh of their victims triggered it. Horrifying changes. Skin going pale, ashen, bodies becoming thin, gaunt, and their eyes glowing yellow or green, yeah. Reflecting this ancient madness that had just consumed them.
And it gets worse, doesn't it? The limbs, the teeth, and those antlers, the black antlers.
Right. Limbs getting longer, gangly, ending in claws, teeth turning into rows of sharp points. And yeah, the black antlers twisted, unnatural looking. And eventually they even sprouted these black flower buds.
Black flowers. Oozing slime.
Oozing a foul-smelling black slime, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not natural growth, is it? It's like the darkness manifesting on them.
It really sounds like they just stopped being human, became something else, bound to that cursed tree.
That's the picture painted. They became creatures tied to the root wallow tree, slaves to the rot they'd invited in. And their violence, it didn't just kill people. It seeped into the land itself, created pockets of malice, like those tar pits filled with hatred.
And out of all that horror, eventually, the full Wendigo figure emerged. The legend we sort of know.
Seems like a further stage of the corruption, yeah. Over generations, they became these hulking, twisted monsters, pulsating black cysts, those flowering antlers, and thick black vine-like things instead of hair. Just nightmares.
Hunting not just for food, but for souls?
Feeding on souls, yeah. Leaving behind empty husks trapped in the shroud grove. Which sounds like some kind of awful, nightmarish purgatory connected to all this.
What a terrifying thought. And even now, echoes of them remain. Whispers on the wind.
Seems so. The last remnants, maybe just their hate and hunger, persisting as voices in the dark, still calling out. And always at the center, the root wallow tree and its black mire. A monument to it all, and still dangerous.
And you mentioned the stitched herd earlier. Are they connected? Like descendants or something?
The sources hint at that, yeah. Maybe descendants, twisted over time by the lingering curse, or maybe something else created by the rot, but definitely connected to the tribe's legacy. Twisted guardians, maybe, for the root wallow tree.
Okay, wow. So that's one massive layer of horror. The tribe's fall, the tree's corruption, their transformation. But then the sources bring in Aяcaиa and his curse.
Right. And this is where that existing darkness in the Ashewood gets weaponized almost, amplified, and given a new, very personal focus.
Ayacaиa. He was the last shaman of the Tisacona tribe, the ones who lived in the Ashewood before.
Before they were wiped out, yeah. According to some accounts, Tisaconi was the real name for the people there, and they were massacred in 1743.
The Red Moon Massacre, that sounds ominous. And it was a betrayal, wasn't it?
A profound betrayal. It happened during a peace meeting, the Binding Feast, supposedly. Led by settlers from the Briarwake area, the Holloways, Dunmores, Cartwrights are mentioned. They basically slaughtered Ayacaиa's people.
Well, Ayacaиa, filled with this incredible grief and rage. He goes looking for the darkest place he knows, the place already corrupted by the Black Wendigo tribe.
He heads straight for the Black Grove, for the root wallow tree, carrying the bodies of his dead kin, apparently. He knew the power, the wrongness that was already there.
So he's using the existing vulnerability, like pouring gasoline on a fire that was already smoldering. Is that the idea?
That feels right. He went to the putrid mire around the tree's roots and performed this forbidden rite.
A rite involving something called the primordial rot? What even is that?
The sources don't fully explain it, but it sounds ancient. Like the fundamental wrongness beneath the world. An ancient hunger? Pure entropy, maybe? Something utterly hostile to life.
And Ayacaиa summoned it, or part of it?
Summoned and bound it seems. Tied it to the Ashewood through his ritual.
And the ritual itself, sewing his own body together with his people's remains, it's just viscerally horrible. It speaks volumes about his state of mind.
Utter grief, utter rage, utter determination. He literally stitched himself and his dead tribe together, carved forbidden runes onto them, made a pact with the blight that was already there. It was final.
And his last act, stitching a blight into the earth. What does that mean exactly? It sounds terrifyingly permanent.
As he walked into the mire, giving himself over to it, with his last breath, he supposedly wove this curse, this blight, into the land itself. A curse fueled by blood, bone, hate, specifically aimed at Briarwake and its descendants, making them pay. Forever.
And in doing so, he changed. He wasn't human anymore. He became, an avatar of the Forest's hatred.
Something like that. A living effigy of betrayal and vengeance. Towering, gaunt, literally stitched together from corpses, covered in tarry sap, weeping sores.
Bone antlers, root-like growths. A mask instead of a face?
Yeah, a mask of bone and bark, no real mouth. Grotesquely long clawed arms, and these pale, glowing green eyes, not alive, but animated by pure hate. Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
He doesn't sound like a monster that just charges, though. More like a creeping dread.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
Slow, dragging movements, but then sudden bursts of terrifying speed. He moves silently in the mist, sometimes even sinks into the mire and reappears. He's part of the corrupted landscape now, an ever-present threat.
And his powers, they actively spread the corruption, don't they? Like the Stitcher's curse.
Right. That lets him raise the dead within the zone, creating the stitched herd. More bodies for the blight. It keeps the cycle going.
And Meyer Tetch, that sounds awful.
It is. Wounds inflicted by him don't heal right. They bleed black, fester, and slowly, horrifically, transform the victim into something that belongs to the mire.
And he attacks the mind, too, whispering blight.
Yeah, that's maybe the cruelest, projecting despair, terror, forcing you to face your own guilt, your sins. It breaks your will, makes you vulnerable to everything else in the Ashewood.
He can even change the land itself, sowing the land.
Seems so. Where he goes, the rot deepens, the fog gets thicker, new patches of that black mire appear. He's actively reshaping the environment in his image. His presence is tied to the sounds, to creaking trees, squelching mud, warnings to get away, because that black rot travels fast.
Okay, so let's connect the dots. The Black Wendigo tribe messes things up first, right? They defile the grove, corrupt the tree with sacrifices. They create the initial wound.
Right, they create this vulnerability, this pocket of deep darkness and pain in the Ashewood.
Then Aяcaиa, driven by his own tragedy, finds this wound and pours his curse into it. He uses the root wallow tree, already tainted, and the mire as focal points.
Exactly. He taps into that existing darkness, that ancient rot maybe hinted at by the tribe's actions, and amplifies it with his own powerful grief and rage. He directs it, gives it purpose.
And his curse then turbocharges the whole thing, leading to the stitched herd appearing everywhere, making the whole Ashewood feel malevolent.
Yeah, it's like the two horrors feed each other. The old corruption provided the fertile ground, and Aяcaиa's curse was the seed that made it explode outwards, creating the stitched herd and deepening that pervasive dread.
So the root wallow tree is ground zero. It soaked up the tribe's evil, then it became the conduit for Aяcaиa's curse, and now it just radiates both.
It's the nexus. Drawing in the ancient blight the tribe flirted with, amplifying Ayacaиa's focused hatred. It's the physical heart of all the accumulated evil there.
It really is a cycle then. The tribe taints the land, Ayacaиa deepens it and creates the stitched herd. The tree keeps pumping out the darkness.
And it all links back to the fate of the victims, doesn't it? Some end up in the mire, their souls maybe feeding the tree or becoming part of that Shroud Grove place, that purgatory born from the initial corruption. It just keeps echoing.
So if someone listening is maybe interested in local legends, is the takeaway here that these stories, these deep fears, they might actually stem from real layered events like this, a history of accumulating trauma.
It certainly suggests that, doesn't it? That the monsters and curses aren't just random stories, but maybe distorted memories of real transgressions and their consequences.
So everything we feel about the Ashewood now, the fog, the weird creatures, that constant sense of being watched or hunted, it's all the result of this tangled history. Tribal darkness, shaman's revenge, nature itself turning toxic.
It seems to be the direct result, yeah. A web of malice where each strand strengthens the others, stretching across centuries.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up. We started with the Black Wendigo tribe, their turn to darkness, the sacrifices that corrupted the great heartroot tree. That was the first layer.
The initial defilement, yeah.
Then Ayacaиa, seeking revenge for the massacre of his people, finds this already tainted place, the root wallow tree and its mire, and unleashes his own powerful curse, tapping into something ancient and terrible.
Using the existing wound to inflict a new, deeper one.
In this combination, the old corruption and the new curse creates this feedback loop. It spawns the stitched herd, spreads the rot, and makes the root wallow tree this central engine of horror, radiating malice. It's like a festering wound that just keeps spreading.
That's a really good summary. And what it forces us to think about, I think, is how easily darkness can take root. How seemingly isolated acts, years apart, can weave together to create something truly monstrous with lasting consequences, not just for people, but for a whole place, a whole legacy.
Which leads to the big question, doesn't it? Can a place ever heal from something like that? Or is the Ashewood just permanently scarred, forever marked by the tribe's fall and Ayacaia's rage?
It's a heavy question. Can that kind of deep, layered corruption ever be truly cleansed? Or does it just linger?
It definitely makes you think about curses, about grief and rage having real power, and how even sacred places aren't immune to being twisted. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other hidden histories, what tangled webs of darkness might be lurking just beneath the surface, even in places that seem totally normal? What stories are we not seeing?